Well, that was a letdown. We thought we were going to get the Bristol spring race from last year. Instead, we got the Bristol fall race, a carbon copy of it. Welcome back to the Breaking Bob channel. Hope y'all are doing well. It is post-Bristol edition. The spring race has come and gone for 2025, and we thought we were going to have tire fall off. No, no, not even close. Those tires were rock solid today. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. Always talking NASCAR and racing on a daily basis here at the channel. And we might as well jump into it because otherwise I'll probably fall asleep because we didn't have much to talk about today. Kyle Larson, dominant, just like the fall race. Over 400 laps led, 411 to be exact this afternoon, as he takes home the checkered flag for his second race win of the season. And again, it's the second win in a row at Bristol for Larson. Second time he's led over 400 laps going back to last fall race. It's the first time that's happened since 1972 in Bobby Allison. So yeah, Kyle Larson's in some rare air, I guess you could say. Just not quite the sweep weekend he was imagining it would. Of course, finishing second place in the Truck Series race on Friday night, did win the Xfinity race in dominant fashion on Saturday. And I think Hendrick Motorsports needed that. Of course, it's been a tough motorsports world. It's been a tough week in the motorsports world overall. There's been a lot of losses, but on the Hendrick Motor side, specifically John Edwards, of course, on the PR communication side, longtime right-hand man for Jeff Gordon, now with Kyle Larson and the team, lost his life this week at 52 years old. It was a very, very sad story. John is a massive just presence in the NASCAR garage, a great lending hand, a great friend to a lot of people. So you could tell that Hendrick Motorsports really, really wanted to show up for him this weekend. And outside of the second place finish in the Truck Series on Friday night, which very, very close to a win there, a near perfect weekend for Kyle Larson and Hendrick Motorsports overall. And dominant, not only for Larson, but Hendrick overall. Alex Bowman on pole led the first few laps, then Larson took it over. And I don't think there was another leader outside of Ryan Blaney for a few laps trying to stretch it out in the stage 3. Hendrick Motorsports did show up today. They, even in qualifying, if you were a Hendrick affiliate, whether it was Hayek Motorsports with Ricky Stenhouse P2 outside of Alex Bowman, and also Spire Motorsports with some speed in practice and qualifying. So the Hendrick engines were roaring on Saturday, although we thought maybe the race would look drastically different, of course, with the grading we saw in the tire fall-off. We'll get to all of that in a minute, but for Kyle Larson, again, win number 2 on the season. He actually tied Martin Truex Jr. for career stage wins as well. He sweeps stages 1 and 2 to get to 66 stage wins, tying MTJ for most in NASCAR history. I have a feeling that record won't last very long, and Kyle Larson will be running away with that one for a few years. And it just shows that when the 5 team is clicking, they're impossible to stop, no matter what track it is. This is just a driver with Kyle Larson where he, of course, he's always on the edge, sometimes maybe too much, but when he's dialed in like this weekend, again, going for Kyle Busch's triple header sweep, 2 out of 3, just like the Homestead. I would imagine you'll see him attempting this at some point or another in the future. Let's get into it. Let's talk about the tire wear, because that was the main story coming into today's race, was the cautious optimism from both fans, media, and team members alike that we might have a similar repeat of what we saw in the Bristol Spring Race last year, where tire cording, tire fall off, I mean, it was 20 laps, 30, 40 laps at best these tires were lasting, and it almost looked like Mario Kart, where if you put on new tires, you were seconds faster than the field. It was almost a liability if you were slow out there the way that you were getting dodged around in traffic. And there was a potential for that today. But instead, we just got absolute no fall off. And you saw teams starting the race today really gingerly, how they really started stage 1. It was almost like the Indy 500, the Daytona 500, where you see the fuel saving. The leaders are setting the pace for the field, sandbagging, holding back the pace for a few seconds. And, with about, I think, 40, 50 laps into that cycle, you saw Justin Haley say enough's enough. He jumped on the outside and jumped from, I think it was 10th to 2nd. And Kyle Larson was the only other driver who jumped from third to 1st. And those are the only 2 drivers that really got that track position when the rest of the field was sandbagging early on, trying to figure out if these tires were the landmines that we actually thought they were. Once we realized, oh no, these are good to go for the entire green flag cycle, over 100 laps on them specifically. Those are the only 2 drivers, Kyle Larson and Justin Haley, that were able to take advantage of that. So I thought that was very notable from stage 1. Otherwise, no tire fall off today. And again, just like the fall race last year, just with less cautions, it was the conveyor belt style Bristol and old school style Bristol race that we've come to expect. I mean, this was a historic race as far as green flag racing. This was the longest green flag run since 2004 at Bristol. And in the stage era in NASCAR, this was the longest green flag cycle in modern stage history, going back to 2016 at Dover. So this is pretty unprecedented. You don't see this happen in the NASCAR world, especially at a track like Bristol. And it wasn't like these teams were just over paranoid. They saw the results from practice yesterday to the point where Goodyear allowed them to purchase another set of tires overnight going into the race on Sunday. So even Goodyear thought we might have another recipe for tire fall off on our hands. But once again, you could only put a band-aid on a bullet wound so many times before we realized maybe it's not Goodyear's fault. It's just the next gen car doesn't produce great short track racing. And we've seen it at Martinsville. We've seen it at Bristol, two quintessential NASCAR tracks that fans circle on the calendar every year, and that's not the case with this next-gen car. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, it doesn't really mesh together, and today was just another example of if there was no tire fall off, it was conveyor belt racing, but not even to the point where you could get to the driver in front of you's bumper and move him out of the way that at least made those races in the 90s and the 2000s entertaining. That was not the case today. Again, only one caution for incident in the entire race. That was the SVG Cody Ware incident in stage 2 where they both spun into each other. But other than that, this was a very, very straightforward, old school style race, but not in a good way. This was the racing that a lot of fans in today's world, I don't think would have reacted well if they were watching this back in the 90s and 80s. But again, 9 cars on the lead lap today. That's how this race finished. And I think 16th on back was at least 2 laps down. So it was one of those races where once you got put down in the field, there was no chance of coming back. There was no wave arounds. There was no chance to get your lap back in strategy. Once you were down behind the count, you were down, unless you were Ryan Preece, who that was the biggest battle on track today. It felt like it was Kyle Larson versus Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece actually won every single battle. I believe he got the free pass 3 different times to get back on the lead lap. So that was the biggest racing battle of the day, was Kyle Larson versus Ryan Preece, just to put him a lap down. Otherwise, there's not a lot to talk about as far as on-track action today, unfortunately. It's to the point now where you're even seeing on social media fans starting to clamor for the Bristol Dirt Days. It only took 2 years before people were asking for the Bristol Dirt Race back. Now, I'm one of those people that didn't think it was really that bad, but I also understand the side that we need 2 races at Bristol Concrete. But when you have a race like today, that doesn't do it any favors. At least the Bristol Dirt Race didn't have people complaining about this. And I don't know if there's any solution. I don't know what the fix is moving forward. I think this is just what it is with the next-gen car. Unless NASCAR wants to make major changes, but it seems like that's out the window as of the last few years. And now they've almost thrown it onto Goodyear and say, you fix it for us. And well, that's not the case every race. That last year was lightning in a bottle, and I was cautiously pessimistic going into today that I'll believe it when I see another race like that at Bristol. I think that was an outlier, and once again, I think that that's just proven correct. Let's look at some of the results, though, from today's race, though, because in the top 10, in the top 8 more specifically, all 4 Joe Gibbs Toyotas. Denny Hamlin, 2nd place, Ty Gibbs, 3rd, Chase Briscoe, a much-needed 4th place, and Christopher Bell in 8th place. Now, Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin finishing 1-2 for the 7th time in their career, but this is the first time that Larson's finished 1st and Hamlin 2nd, so finally, Larson getting the better of Denny Hamlin in a race that, of course, was very thoroughly dominated. We've seen in the past, though, Hamlin usually gets the better of Larson somehow or another in these races, so no three-peat for Denny Hamlin today, but still a 2nd place finish, nothing to hang your hat on. In the Chevy camp, rounding out the top 10, Ross Chastain in 7th, Austin Dillon, a P10 for RCR, and AJ Allmendinger, another top 10, 9th place for the Dinger. Seems like he is really, really strong at Bristol, but this season, Colleague has at least brought a little bit more speed to the track, and Allmendinger, again, back in the Cup Series full-time for 2025, right where he belongs. Colleague should not have taken him out of that seat in 2024. I understand that they were trophy hunting in the Xfinity Series, but he gives them the best chance to compete for a playoff spot. And, if he gets results like this moving forward, he could be one of those guys that's fringe on the point side getting in. And you're seeing multiple winners already this year. Larson with 2 wins, Bell with 3, Hamlin with 2, William Byron with 1, of course, but maybe not as many winners this year and a lot of repeat winners, someone like an AJ Allmendinger, that's going to help moving forward. I mentioned their speed in practice and qualifying, but Spire Motorsports, Justin Haley 13th after that early track position. Carson Hocevar, even with a bad pit stop, he ran top 5, top 10 most of the day, worked his way back up for an 11th place finish. Really, really much needed. Again, he's shown the speed all year, but it just seems like one way or another he's going to get snake bitten. I thought, oh, that pit stop, that's the excuse this week. But no, an 11th place finish in a weekend where Spire really showed speed. Outside of Michael McDowell, who was, I think, 5 laps down at one point in stage 3, 6 laps down, just not the mesh that we thought they would have with Michael McDowell joining Spire early on, getting outrun by Hocevar and Haley. And I'm wondering if maybe that's just because McDowell's been at Front Row Motorsports for so long, but that was it's not the partnership I thought it would be. But on the other hand, Josh Berry, the Wood brothers, continuing to stack up good results at 12th place finish. And Kyle Busch with RCR. Again, I talked about Austin Dillon at top 10. Kyle Busch was battling Brad Keselowski for 15th all night, but Kyle Busch still 14th, breaks his outside the top 25 streak at Bristol. I think that was 5 races in a row, so we're getting in the right direction, at least for Busch. Chase Elliott, 15th place, just non-existent today. Once again, another week where that 9 team just isn't matching the speed that his teammates have. Alex Bowman on pole. William Byron worked his way up to the top 10 for most of the second and third stage. And Kyle Larson, of course, dominant today. Chase Elliott just not matching that speed. Something to watch moving forward if this is just a rough start to the season outside of that Clash win, or if this is a sign that Hendrick Motorsports just can never seem to get all 4 drivers on the same page. 2 drivers I want to touch on. Corey LaJoie, 34th place finish. Not great, but outrunning Cody Ware. Just at some point, Rick Ware Racing needs to make the case. Okay, I understand Cody Ware is the boss's son, but Corey LaJoie is a more competitive driver. Maybe Corey doesn't want to be in that ride full time. I know he's going to be with Amazon on the broadcasting side. Maybe he doesn't want to commit full time to that Rick Ware ride, but I don't understand that driver situation there. I know it's just probably the boss's son and nepotism, but frustrating to see Corey LaJoie come in there, and not that he ran well, but a competitive ride compared to Cody Ware, who got caught up with that SVG incident, like I said. And then Daniel Suarez, 33rd place. The only time I really saw on his broadcast was when a tire from John Nemechek's car went rogue and nearly took out one of his pit crew members. Daniel Suarez, non-existent today. I mean, he got outrun by Jesse Love in his Cup Series debut, who finished 31st today for RCR in that third car. This is not the results Daniel Suarez needs when you've got Connor Zilic in the wings as a young prospect over in the trackhouse development side. SVG's not helping himself anymore, so maybe the seat's not that hot on Daniel as much as maybe fans think, but 33rd place, not a good result for Trackhouse today. But let me know your thoughts down below. Kyle Larson taking the win today at Bristol, 2 out of 3 this weekend. Of course, Chandler Smith with the Truck Series win on Friday night, but Larson Xfinity on Saturday and the Cup Series on Sunday. He's getting 2 giant swords from Bristol this weekend. There's not much else we can really recap, but if you like what you saw on the channel today, make sure you like this video, subscribe to Breaking Bob. It does help me out a ton here on the channel, and I'll see you soon. We've got the weekend off on the Cup Series side, but Rockingham for trucks and Xfinity, and Casey Kane is making his return to the NASCAR world this weekend. So I'll have coverage, of course, leading up to that this week. Stay tuned for more. I appreciate you watching.